What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel and welcome back to our video. Today I'll be taking a look at the intros for the 2025 Viva Mexico 250 at Mexico City. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This is once again be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain is coming off having a really solid run in Michigan, finishing inside the top 10 in 6th place. This one team's had really good speed in recent weeks. Of course, he won the Coke 600 a couple weeks ago, and Ross Chastain's been a pretty underrated road course racer as he picked up his first career Cup victory on a road course in 2022. I think Trackhouse is going to bring the speed. They've been really good at the road courses in recent years. I think he has a chance to get that second win of 2025. Up next, I have the 2 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. After some really strong runs early in the year, it seems like this 2 team's been struggling a little bit in recent weeks. Austin Cindric, though, is a pretty decent road course racer. He's shown some decent speed on these types of tracks, and I could see him being an outside factor for a good finish. I don't think he's going to be a favorite for the win, but I think Cindric will have some pretty good speed this weekend at Mexico City. Up next, I have the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon kind of struggled in the NASCAR Cup Series race at Michigan, and he was a little bit had some weeks where they've been a little bit up and down. I think Austin Dillon is not the best road course racer either, so I think it'll be a little bit of struggle for him this weekend. I hope he can have a good run, but I don't think it'll be a major factor for the win. I think a top 20 is certainly possible. Up next, up with the 4 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson, unfortunately, crashed out this past weekend at Michigan, and he struggled a little bit in recent weeks as well due to a lot of wrecks and a lot of inconsistencies. And Noah Gragson's been hit or miss at road courses as well. So I don't think Noah Gragson is going to be a factor at all to get a good finish. I think a top 25 is certainly possible, but I think that's about the best that Noah Gragson is going to do this weekend at Mexico City. Up next, up with the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's coming off having a really solid run at Michigan, finishing inside the top 5. And Kyle Larson is one of the better road course racers in the NASCAR Cup Series. I think he's won like 5 or 6 career races on road courses, including twice last year at Sonoma and the Charlotte Roval. I think Larson has an outside chance to go to victory lane. I think he'll be a major factor for the victory. Still looking for his 4th win of the season. I think Larson will have a good chance and opportunity to definitely do that this weekend at Mexico. Up next, I have the 6 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski had a pretty good run this past weekend in Michigan, finishing inside the top 10 for the second time in the last 3 races. I think Brad is going to struggle a little bit, though, because I think RFK, historically outside of Chris Buescher, has not been that great at these types of tracks. I think Brad might get a shot in the top 20, but I think that's about it at this point. But he'll look to get a good finish and have a really strong run with the team and program this weekend in Mexico. Up next, up with the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley had a little bit of struggling weekend at Michigan. He ran outside the top 30 most of the event and didn't show the pace and speed. Now, Justin Haley, despite this, I think is actually a decent road racer. Last year, despite the fact he got disqualified at Dakota, he was running inside the top 20 in that event. And Spire's equipment at road courses, while they don't qualify well, the race speed on these types of tracks is generally solid. So I think he has a decent chance for a good run. We'll see what Haley can do, and we'll see if he might have an outside chance of maybe getting that first win of 2025. Up next, up with the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is coming off having another solid run this past weekend in Michigan and finishing in 8th position inside of the top 10. And Kyle Busch goes in this weekend as one of the favorites for the victory. 1, he won this track in the Xfinity Series back in 2008, the last time the Xfinity Series ran at this track. But number 2, he was really fast at Coda. He had one of the strongest cars in the field, and I think he'll be one of the odds-on favorites in that Lucas Oil machine to go to victory lane. He might snap the winless streak this weekend. I think he's got a good chance with the prior experience here. Up next, up with the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott did lead some laps in Michigan, but they have bad strategy and they finished in 15th position. Chase Elliott comes in this weekend as someone who I think will be a minimum top 10 guy on the road courses. He's not been as strong in the next-gen era, but he's still been very, very solid. I do think he'll contend to lead laps, and I think he'll have a decent chance and opportunity for the win. He's looking for his first win since Texas earlier last year. I think he's got a decent chance to do that at Mexico. Up next, how about the 10 car for Colleague Racing? This will once again be driven by Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon's had some decent speed in 2025. He has shown some top 20 speed. Showed that, of course, at Michigan. Now, Ty Dillon's been okay at road courses, but has never really set the world on fire. I think with Colleague, they will have a decent chance for at least an okay performance. I don't expect him to be a major factor for the win, but I think we'll have a decent run and show some decent speed this weekend in Mexico City. Up next up at the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is once going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's coming off of picking up his 57th career NASCAR Cup Series victory this past weekend at Michigan. Now, Denny Hamlin has not been as good in the next-gen era at the road courses. He's qualified well, but the race pace just generally has not been there at these types of tracks. So while I don't think Hamlin will be a factor for the win, I think a top 20 is certainly possible for Hamlin. I think we'll have decent speed. I think Joe Gibbs Racing will try to bring it. We'll see what he can do this weekend in Mexico. Up next up, the 12th car for Team Penske. This is once going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has had a lot of bad luck so far in 2025. Of course, he picked up the win most recently in Nashville a couple weekends ago, but Ryan Blaney's had a lot of times where things have not gone his way. And with Mexico probably going to be a pretty chaotic event, I think that could affect Blaney because he's had a lot of lack of luck. We'll see what it can do, but I think Blaney will have something go wrong because that's been the luck for him this year. Up next up with the 16 car for Colleague Racing. This is once going to be driven by AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger going into this weekend is one of the favorites going into the event. He has prior experience in racing in the Champ Car days back in the mid-2000s, and AJ Allmendinger is one of the best road course racers in the field. If they have the equipment hold under him, I think Allmendinger will have a great chance to go to victory lane. He's looking for, I believe, his 4th career NASCAR Cup Series win. I think he's got a good chance and an opportunity to definitely do that this weekend in Mexico. Up next up with the 17 car for RFK Racing. This is once going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher's coming off finishing runner-up this past weekend in Michigan and putting on one of his best performances of the year. And I look for him to have a good chance to get victory. He, of course, won at Watkins Glen last year and has been super consistent on these types of tracks. I think he minimum will get a top 10 for sure, but I think we'll have really good speed. I think he's going to bring it. He's been the best RFK car at these types of tracks. I think we'll have a really good run this weekend at Mexico City. Up next up, the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is once going to be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe's had 3 straight poles going into Michigan, but he has not had the race speed translate. And Briscoe's been a solid road course racer, though. I think he ran really well at the Races Circuit Americas earlier this year, and I think we'll have a pretty good car. Maybe they'll sacrifice the qualifying speed to run up front in the event like they did at Dakota. I think we'll have good speed. I think we'll have a good chance and opportunity for a solid run this weekend in Mexico. Up next up, the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is once going to be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell had a little bit of a not great run this past weekend in Michigan, but we go to a type of track where Bell's been good as he has 2 career wins on road courses, including the most recent one in Circuit of the Americas. I think Bell is going to have a fast car. He's a pretty good road course racer if you ask me. I think he's going to have the pace and speed. I think he'll have a great chance and opportunity to get win number 4 of 2025 this weekend in Mexico. Up next up with the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This is once going to be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry historically is not the best road course racer out there. Luckily, he does have a lot of points and got the win earlier this year in Las Vegas because he's been really good at the high-speed intermediates this season. On these types of tracks, so like I mentioned, I don't expect Berry to be a factor. I think we'll have decent speed, but I don't think it'll be a major factor for the win. It could be a struggle for Josh Berry in Mexico City. Up next up with the 22 car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Joe Logano. Very similar to Josh Berry, Joe Logano has not been as strong at road courses. He wasn't that great at Circuit Americas. He kind of ran mid to back of the pack most of the event. And I think Logano will be looking for more stage points than anything else at this particular point to try to pad a little bit more. We'll see what it can do, but I don't think Logano will be a major factor and contender for a win this weekend. Up next up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is coming off having a really good run this past weekend in Michigan, padding his gap to the cutoff line being 62 points. And he's going to need that because Bubba's been a little bit inconsistent at road courses, although I will say he has gotten a lot better at road courses in recent years and at a fast car at Circuit of the Americas. I think we'll have a top 10 potential. I think he's in for a good run. We'll see what we can do this weekend and have maybe a good run here at Mexico. Up next up with the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by William Byron. William Byron is a pretty dang good road course racer. Of course, he won at Watkins going back in 2023 and almost won his Circuit Americas earlier this season. I think Byron will be a factor for a really good run. I think he'll have a very fast car. He's been one of the fastest cars in recent weeks. They've got to have the execution. I think if they can execute, he could be a major factor to get it done this weekend in Mexico. Up next up at the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Now, Todd Gillen, despite the fact that this team's had some bad luck, this type of track is actually pretty good for Todd, as he's had some top 20s and even some top 15s at these types of tracks, including, I believe, getting a top 10 at Coda earlier this year. I think Todd Gillen could be in for a turnaround race. I think Front Row is going to bring some decent speed. We'll see what it can do, and we'll see if Gillen can be a factor for a great run this weekend in Mexico City. Up next up with the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Riley Herbst. Now, before Riley Herbst made that mistake at Coda early in the year, he was in contention to win the pole. But this 35 team's been really, really bad in general this season. They are looking for a turnaround run. And to be honest, I do not expect that from Riley Herbst going into the weekend. It's been a struggle for this team this year. He doesn't have the overall speed. They're making a lot of mistakes. I think it will be a struggle for Riley this weekend at Mexico City. Up next, out of 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith continues to bring a lot of speed to the racetrack on a week-by-week basis, and he's coming off of having a top 10 finish this past weekend at Michigan. I look for him to be a factor for a top 10 finish once again. He was really good in the Truck Series on road courses, and that speed is translating to the Cup side as well. We'll see what Zane Smith can do, but I think he will be a factor for a great run this weekend in Mexico. Up next, up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This will once again be driven by Cole Custer. Cole Custer is starting to turn the corner a little bit, had a good run at Nashville, but it seems like there's also been some struggles for the 41 team as he did end up getting in a wreck. I don't expect Cole Custer to be a major factor for like a win for anything like that, but I think we'll be in for maybe a top 20 finish. We'll see what it can do this weekend in Mexico City with this team. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Hunter Nemechek has some really good speed in the middle portion of the year, but the last couple weeks, a lot of bad luck has translated to this program. I think Nemechek could be in for an okay run, but I don't think it'll be a major factor as Legacy's been a little bit inconsistent on the road courses. I think that could be a struggle, but we'll see if Nemechek can turn that around and run really good in Mexico. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones is starting to really turn the corner this season. He has got the 7th best average finish over the course of the last 5 races, and this 43 team's been getting a lot quicker. That being said, I think that's going to stop because Eric Jones has struggled on road courses in recent years. I think Legacy will try to bring that Toyota speed, but I'm not sure if it's going to translate to a good run. We'll see if Jones can have a good run this weekend in Mexico. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is coming into this weekend as one of the favorites for the victory because Tyler Reddick is really, really good at road courses as he won like 3 or 4 of those races in his career at these types of tracks. I think Reddick is in for a really good run. I think 2311 Racing is going to bring a pace and speed. I think he'll have a very strong and fast car. I look for him to be a pretty big factor for the victory this weekend at Mexico. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Stenhouse kind of ran a little bit okay this past weekend, but did not set the world on fire. And Ricky has not been amazing at road courses in recent seasons. I think it will be a struggle for him to be a major factor for the win. I think a top 25 might be there, but outside of that, I don't expect much from him. I think there could be some trouble and could be some struggles for Stenhouse this weekend when we do get to Mexico City. Up next up with the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman comes in this weekend looking to stop the bleeding. He has had 4 or 5 finishes at 27th or worse in recent weeks and is barely above the cutoff line. This 48 team needs to stop the bad stuff that's been going on, and with the chaos that I expect, I'm not sure if that is going to stop at this particular moment. He needs a turnaround run. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. There's been a lot of struggles. Maybe he'll turn around, but I'm not sure if that will happen for him this weekend in Mexico. Up next up with the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This will once again be driven by Cody Ware. Cody Ware, I don't expect much from him this week, and he's struggled mainly this year. He's had some top 30 runs. I will give him that, but I don't think Cody Ware is going to be a factor in any way, shape, or form. It will be a little bit of struggle for him to show up with the speed. I think he won't have the overall pace and speed, and I think it will be a little bit of struggle for him out on the racetrack with the Rick Ware Racing team at Mexico. Up next up with the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This will once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is coming off of having a really stellar run at Michigan as he finished in 3rd place. I think Ty Gibbs could be a sleeper. He's been really good at road courses in the next-gen era, really fast at tracks like Chicago. He's starting to build that confidence once again, which I think could really lead him having a really strong run. So we'll see what happens for Ty, but I think he's in for another good run. I think he will be a sleeper for a victory this weekend in Mexico City. Up next up is the 60 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is coming off of having another solid finish this past weekend at Michigan. But for Ryan Preece, he's had some decent finishes, but has not really set the world on fire. I do think Ryan Preece, because of the RFK cars, though, could be in for a decent performance. We'll see what it can do. I don't think it'll be a major factor for the win, but I think a top 15 will be on the realm for Ryan Preece this weekend in Mexico City. Up next, up at a 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell comes into this weekend as one of the early favorites for the victory. McDowell, I believe, does have experience in racing in champ cars, I'm pretty sure, and I think doing some IMSA racing back in the day as well. And I think McDowell will be a factor for a really good performance. I think he'll be able to help the Spire Motorsports cars show up some really good speed at this type of track. I think he's in for a good run. We'll see what he can do, and we'll see if he can be a factor for a really good finish this weekend in Mexico. Up next, up at a 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This one once going to be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar has shown some really, really good speed in recent weeks, and I think he is due for his first Cup win. But he's also been really good at the high-speed traditional ovals. Now, to be fair, Watkins Glen last year, he ran really well and finished in the top 5. I think he may be in for a good run, but I think that's all going to depend if Spire can bring that pace and speed. If they can do that, I think Carson will have a good chance and opportunity. We'll see what we can do this weekend, and maybe he'll be an outside factor for a really good run in Mexico. Up next, I'm in a 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. This will be driven by Catherine Lake, who I believe will make her second or third Cup Series appearance of the season. This also is her first road course start of the season. Catherine Lake is someone that I think actually will do pretty solid. Unfortunately, Phoenix did not go well for her. There's been a lot of bad mistakes for her. Of course, got caught up in that wreck of Eric Gombrol at Talladega, and some other wrecks that really haven't been her fault, like what happened to Charlotte in the Xfinity Series. I think that Catherine Lake could have an okay run. I think this type of track where she'll shine, and I think it could help her do very, very good and maybe at least get a decent run for the Live Fast Motorsports team. Up next, up at the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane Van Gisbergen is really starting to figure out the ovals. He finished in 18th this past weekend in Michigan. He's had 3 or 4 top 20 finishes in the last 5 or 6 races. And we're going to a type of track where he's one of the odds-on favorites, as I think SVG is the early favorite to win. 1, it's a new track where not a lot of drivers have been on in previous years. And number 2, Shane Van Gisbergen was really fast at Circuit of the Americas. There's been types of tracks where I've picked him to win. I think because of the newness, he will be a factor for the victory. I think he's going to have a good speed. I think he will be one of the favorites to go to victory lane this weekend in Mexico. And finally, let's talk about the driver of the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez comes in as a hometown hero and probably one of the favorites going into this weekend. A lot of people are going to be rooting for him, especially people in Mexico are going to be really rooting for Suarez to run very well. And I do think with Trackhouse, they're going to do what they can to try to give Daniel Suarez the best opportunity to go to victory lane, considering it's unknown if Suarez will be back with Trackhouse Racing next season, with Zilic maybe waiting in the wings to take over that seat. I think he's in for a good run, though. We'll see if Suarez can show up and show some really good speed. I think he will have a solid run. Question is, will he execute it? We're not entirely sure at this point. So, that is going to be it for the intro video for the 2025 Viva Mexico 250 in Mexico City. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go to below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Who's your early pick to win the Cup Series race at the Autodromo Hernando Rodriguez track? Let me know your picks in the comments below. Later today and this morning, you are going to see the NASCAR Xfinity Series entrance for the Chilango 250 at the racetrack, and we also are going to have some other, at the 150 I should say. We're also, if any major news breaks, discuss it live. Wednesday, we're going to have a NASCAR news we discussing news over the course of the last couple days. There was some silly C stuff that Bob Parker's dropped. Talk about maybe Jesse Love landing at Legacy Motor Club, some more Dodge stuff, maybe RFK being interested in coming back and having a truck program in the future. We're also going to have Xfinity race picks on Wednesday. Then Thursday, we'll have Cup picks for the Viva Mexico 250, and we're also going to have the paint scheme video as well. We got content coming out on people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Cletus McFarland, Dodge, Honda, you name it, 2011 Front Row, Junior Motorsports, Connor, Zilic, Carson, Goffel, Sam Mears, Sheldon Creed. We'll talk about all this stuff on the channel in the coming days and weeks. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.